If you're watching this video, you are considering becoming a tutor, already are a tutor, or someone who works with tutors on your campus. We encourage you to take notes as you watch this video, as we will be covering quite a bit of information. Using Costa's levels of inquiry in a Socratic tutorial helps your students discover how to think for themselves and take ownership of their learning. Even more importantly, it helps students discover their point of confusion while diving deeper into uncovering a clear understanding of the content. This is especially important for Socratic tutorials because it supports the students' learning of the material and helps them articulate how they got to their understanding, while allowing for the application of that understanding through an opportunity to share and work collaboratively with the group or one-on-one with a tutor. This understanding eventually helps to break the habit of chasing the one right answer and results in a better understanding of the learning process that is required to move through a point of confusion. This idea is intended to provide the students tools that will help them develop more learning independence as opposed to the student seeking to be shown how to do it. During the Socratic tutorial process, there will be opportunities to focus on the 3 levels of inquiry. Level 1 are information gathering questions, and Level 2 are processing questions. Level 3 are application questions that can contribute to a new concept, idea, or theory. Remember, tutors are resources to the student, and although you may be aware of the answers, it's important to try and ask questions to lead the student to the answer, as opposed to taking the "here, I'll show you" approach. This art of asking questions to lead the student to the answer can be done in a number of different ways, but a good way to get started is by using the tutorial inquiry form. The form contains some of the initial inquiries that should take place in order to help the students discover and articulate their point of confusion. Level 1 is where you, as a tutor, begin to help students gather information about the content of which they are confused. You can start off with Level 1 questions like, what course and instructor is this for? Or what topic area are you working on? To which the response, although maybe simple, can provide some insight to moving learning forward. Level 1 questions progressively become more specific to the content area that will be worked on. For example, what is your initial question or problem that was proposed to you by your instructor, assignment, or homework? This question could be answered with little investigation and some recollection on the student's part. With it answered, you could continue and ask, what are the key academic vocabulary, words, or terms associated with this topic, and how can we define them? Following such inquiries, it is important to allow deliberation on what resources are needed to help solve this question or problem. Questions that begin with identify, select, list, define, describe, and observe could also be asked of and responded to by the students you are working with. This, of course, should be a natural exchange and conversation, where you may point the student to different resources if a particular Level 1 question cannot be answered. The answers to most Level 1 questions can be found directly in the textbook or by the sharing of common knowledge the student would have gained by attending class. Remember, you should ask and encourage students, as well as tutorial groups, to ask these Level 1 questions at the start of the conversation so that everyone can be clear on the point of confusion. What do you know about your initial question? Level 2 is where the conversation is turned up and the student and/or tutorial group begins to process the information that was just gathered on the tutorial inquiry form. For example, based on the information given and what we have discovered, how might this play a role in changing the outcome? Questions like, could you explain to me why that problem worked out the way it did and not like the others we've been working on? Could also be asked in order to check your students' understanding of the content and the learning that is taking place. Level 2 questions are even more specific to the content area and require much more deliberation and processing on the student's part in order to answer. It is important at this stage to remember that, although it may be easier to show the student, he or she who does the work does the learning. This is a good time to encourage the student or tutorial group to attempt to solve or resolve the question. Step back and act as a guide through this learning process. As a tutor, you can continue to support the student by asking them questions that begin with compare, contrast, distinguish, analyze, classify, and explain why. This allows for a deeper processing of the information, and more than likely, obstacles in understanding will be uncovered at this stage of the tutorial. Again, remember that as a tutor, you are a resource for the student and/or group, And although you may have an answer that will move the group's thinking forward, allow them to try and discover it first before sharing. Tutors can always share an answer, but should try not to give, show, or demonstrate the final answer themselves. Allow the students an opportunity to discover the answer with guidance. Finally, Level 3 is where students get an opportunity to apply what they have gathered and processed to a new concept, idea, or theory. In order to guide students through the application stage, you must ask and support the group or individual in asking questions like, based on the chapter that we have read and your understanding of the concept, how might your opinion change and what research helps support that change? You could continue to push your students' thinking by asking questions that begin with predict, hypothesize, speculate, judge, if-then, and forecast. The answers to these questions lead to a mastery of understanding the content and provide the students with their aha moment. The answers to these questions are often off the pages of the textbooks and can open the floor for discussion. It is important to remember that inquiry is a learned skill and is mastered through consistent practice and application. Asking the right question is key to engaging students' critical thinking and helping them discover their learning. Check with your tutoring center's supervisor regarding this training or any additional materials. And always remember, you're a valuable asset to your college and its students' success.